Okay guys, in this video today we're going to be taking a cheeky look at Zilliqa. It has recently had a pretty significant push today, so we thought it was apt to try to cover what's going on with the price action of the ZIL token. Guys, as we get into this video, if you find it useful and informative, then do go ahead and hit that like button. I really do appreciate it. If you're new to the space and you want to stay up to date, make sure you've subscribed, tap the bell, hit on all notifications, and you won't miss another Zilliqa update. Guys, with all that said and done, let's get into what's going on here with Zilliqa. So as you can see, this is Zilliqa against the USDT. The weekly chart is where we are currently looking, and we are using Binance as the data source. Now, I always like to start on the weekly view. Helps us keep everything in perspective as to where things are likely to go here in the kind of Q3, Q4 of 2021 as we go into 2022. Obviously, there's the fifth wave is the last wave that we are looking for in the bull run. We seem to have found a pretty decent bottom area here for Zilliqa. So we're going to talk about all of that kind of good stuff. We are talking about Zilliqa potentially moving up to 92.5 cents, pretty much around that dollar level. And that's where the bull run will really end here for Zilliqa, unless there's some fundamental shifts that do take this above and beyond. Now, what we do have on this weekly chart is the 5 impulse waves to the upside using Elliott theory. We have the Fibonacci retracement tool. We have the buy zone. So any members out there who were paying attention, we obviously went the buy zone. We dropped into there earlier this week, and we could have accumulated a lot more ZIL, and now we've obviously gone out of here. In that Fibonacci retracement tool, we also highlight the 618, the 702, and the 786. This is the area that we're looking to get a closed candle above, and that's just here. Once we get that closed candle above there, that'll be the real strong signal to say that we are out of this correction altogether, and we'll be moving on to these first, second, third, and fourth price targets. Now, of course, the other thing that's really important to acknowledge on the weekly chart is the stochastic relative strength index, and for Zilliqa here, we are at 3.1, so really oversold. Anything lower than 20 is oversold. We can obviously see that there were a few points where it was actually lower, so we've recently pushed the price up a little bit. We pushed a stochastic relative strength index up with it. Now, the other thing that's also really important is just kind of just recognize what's been going on. So during basically the crash of 2020, March 2020, and what we can see is basically us bottoming out on that stochastic relative strength index, right? Ultimately, this came down all the way down to absolute zero, okay, on that fast line. And ultimately, what this is indicating to us is that we're going to get that reversal. We're going to get that push to the upside. We saw this when we peaked out with wave 1 at the top here, and ultimately we got this all the way up to 100, right? The highest score you can get, completely overbought. So we were expecting this correction to come in. During this correction, again, we bottomed the stochastic relative strength index right down here at the bottom. And again, this was around 2.8, around that kind of area there. Now, during this particular correction, obviously, we were oversold again, so expectations were, of course, to rise the stochastic relative strength index to the upside. And in doing so, we were able to push the price back up during the third wave. Now, in theory, we should have actually kind of bottomed out or topped out around here. They had a small correction here in terms of momentum, and then we went up for the second peak. This is quite common across most of these altcoins. However, a lot of momentum was actually lost halfway through this third wave to the upside. Ultimately, I think that was down to a lot of what was going on with Bitcoin, with redistribution going on in the Wyckoff redistribution pattern. Ultimately, that allowed for an extension on many of these altcoins, and Zilliqa was exactly that as well. The momentum dropped out, but not by too much, and then spiked up for that peak right here. Once we got that, we obviously had the crash come down, or the correction wave 4, as I like to refer to it. People have referred to this as a bear market, etc. But for me, this is very clearly a correction wave and wave 4. Obviously, this has brought that stochastic right the way back down to where it was previously at the low of the second wave, and before we'd even started wave 1. Okay, so this is now indicating that we are likely to push up, and we are to go after this fifth wave. And the fifth wave, guys, does top out up here at 92.5 according to the Fibonacci retracement tool, with the extension of the 4.236. So pretty interesting price expectations and price predictions for this remaining bull run for this fifth wave as we complete the bull run towards the end of the year, beginning of 2022. So now we have a good understanding on the bigger picture, and we understand that we are going to be pushing the price up because we were incredibly oversold on this weekly. Let's go down into our daily and take a look at what's been going on here. Now, the Fibonacci has been removed, so we keep this nice and simple, but the yellow box just at the top here does represent our 618, our 702, and our 786 area, and we would like to get the closed candle above this area to really strongly signal that we are pushing up and going after the 1.618, the 2.618, the 3.618, and of course that 4.236. Once we obviously get those conquered, we'll be in a really strong position, obviously, to accumulate during a bear market, right? But ultimately, we don't want to talk about a bear market when we still have this fifth wave to go and some all-time highs still to set here for Zilliqa. Now, obviously, we can see the accumulation zone that we dropped down into. This is something that we spoke about recently for our members, as we thought the possibility of dropping down into this area was one that we should be mentioning. Now, obviously, this is an area that we kind of touched on a couple of times. So when we were to touch down and actually go into this area, this was definitely the accumulation area, right? So any of the members out there, hopefully you were able to pick up a bag here if you were looking to purchase Zilliqa. Obviously, I'm not a financial advisor, but this is what I was doing. I was in the market during this point here. Now, obviously for Zilliqa, we've had a significant run, right? And this significant run has utilized all of this space here on the stochastic relative strength index. So on this daily chart, we are overbought, right? But we've got to bear in mind that the weekly, we are oversold, right? So even though the momentum and that we've recently had here for ZIL is really positive and we're overbought, this is something that we're going to see kind of have to happen on a consistent basis. We're going to start seeing the momentum shift, drop down without doing too much price damage, and then go right the way back up, taking up another step in terms of price action. And this is going to seriously help that bigger picture. It's going to help that weekly candle get closed at a much higher position. And again, we're going to take little steps week by week, month by month, as we correct that weekly stochastic relative strength index from oversold to overbought. Okay, it's not going to be a quick journey, but what you are going to see is volatility on the smaller time frames as we build that bigger picture. So on this daily chart, I should say, where we are in this stochastic, we'll expect this to pull back down a little bit without doing too much damage. We'll look for good support, and hopefully we'll be able to hold that as we come down to the oversold area, and then we'll push back up and taking a step at a time as we conquer small milestones on these daily charts and hourly charts. So again, really good picture as to know what's going on here. So let's jump down into our hourly, right? Because this is another interesting view that's always worth paying attention to, right? So obviously we have the accumulation zone just down here where loads of people were potentially accumulating during this particular phase. And what was really interesting about this, right, is ultimately we were heavily overbought when we were right down here, right? But because the weekly chart was so oversold, there was no way it was actually going to be able to pull down any lower. So what you saw here was actually the price push up and a sustained overbought area was actually upheld. This is something that was very possible for the daily chart to stick to as we progress that weekly chart from an oversold situation. And what we saw once we got to the top here was this small kind of price correction, yet all of that correction actually occurred and that momentum loss on that relative strength index, that stochastic relative strength index, right? So what you're looking for is this to happen on our stochastic, but on the daily chart so that we can continue the motion to the upside. And you see this again, right? We have another overbought area just here. We pull back a tiny little bit right at this point, oversold by the time we're down here, and then we're taking advantage. We're right back up into overbought. And if this was to continue like this, and this is something that Zilliqa was very good at in the early stages during phase 1 and or wave 1, wave 3, it was very good at kind of taking this momentum out and then building it up again. And it's taken bite-sized chunks out of the price action. Now, ultimately, we are overbought on both the daily and, of course, this hourly. So again, we're looking for that momentum shift. And what we're looking for here is to find a really good, strong support line. And I think we're going to find it right about here, which should be about 7.1. We're currently tracking at 7.4 at the point of recording the video. So again, if we are sustained for a little bit here, we might completely drop out this stochastic relative strength index and build it back up again whilst we actually hold a good strong support line. And if we can able to do that effectively, I think Zilliqa is going to be on a real good journey to the upside, and it's definitely one to be watching out for. Zilliqa's definitely got some traction behind it right now. So let's go back up into our daily. Now we obviously understand that the hourly is also overbought, the daily here is overbought, and the weekly is oversold, right? So what we're looking for is that momentum shift to occur and for us to basically have a small correction that continues, allows us to continue that upward swing. Now, we'd put the volume on here. You can see that there's a significant amount of volume coming in today, which is vastly different to that of previous days, right? When we take a look at the selling pressure that brought us into the buy zone, we can see that there was very little kind of pressure really pushing the price down there, but there was, more selling than buying. But that was fantastic. It was fine. It was the same time period as when Bitcoin dropped below 30K, and loads of people were expecting it to drop down much further. Ultimately, there was the reversal that actually occurred, and that's what you've seen with many of these altcoins as well. But I am going to be super cautious about tomorrow with the traders opening and all these institutions getting back into the markets after the weekend. It was a good, strong weekend, but we had seen previously, come the Monday, a lot of that progress was taken back out, with some volumes dropping in of significant value, pushing the prices down back into accumulation zones. So we are mindful over what could happen tomorrow as we enter Monday. But otherwise, I think Zilliqa is in a very strong position, considering the stochastic relative strength index on the weekly chart. It's always important that we don't get too bogged down in the details of the dailies and the weekly charts when we have a longer term vision for where things are going to go. We're looking for 92.5 cents for Zilliqa, and that's only really going to be possible over the weeks and months. We don't want to be too focused down on what's going on that hourly chart, or too focused on what is going on when it comes to that daily chart. As long as we are setting good key week indicators as we continue to push the price up on the weekly chart, we should be in a pretty good, strong position. It's looking like wave 4 has come to a bottom. It had that accumulation zone. It only stayed down there for a few hours, and now we're starting to see this reversal. Again, we are still oversold at 3.2. I cannot stress how low that is. We take a look at how low things were previously, right? Where we're talking about 2.8 for wave 2, 3.1 for wave 2. We go down to the actual crash, right? It did go down to absolute zero in March of 2020. But it didn't stay there for too long at all. It was a couple of weeks and then we were out. What we've actually seen so far is actually a sustained low level here, and that's the manipulation of deliberately keeping prices down low for accumulation. This is something that obviously was happening quite a bit with Bitcoin, and obviously the altcoins are following. So this looks like it's starting to get a bit of a reversal. It's starting to have this correction. This is something that we've been talking about for a while in terms of the end of July, beginning of August seems to be the most reasonable and logical time frame for this correction to kind of come in. And it means that ultimately we'll be progressing slowly through the month of August to the upside, with September being a good, strong key month going into the Q4, basically, as we go into October, November, and December. I think ultimately we're going to be in a very strong position by the end of the year, and it's important that we do lock in a few profits on that journey to the upside. We don't wait for 92.5 cents. Sell at a few of the other key milestones as well. And if you're a member, then you'll be able to enjoy some of our exit strategies around specific projects as well. Guys, hopefully you have found this brief update on Zilliqa useful and informative. If you have, hit that like button. I really do appreciate it. If you're new, make sure you've subscribed, hit the bell, tapped on all, and you won't miss another update. Guys, with this said, done, and out of the way, I hope everyone has a fantastic day, and I'll catch you all in the next one.